This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where, yes, business owners share their wisdom. It's short and to the point to respect people's time. And because we know, yes, transforming possibility happens really fast and it leads to lasting results. So enough of that. You've heard me say that. Let's get to our special guests. Question number one, Kathryn and Michael. In a few sentences, tell me who you are and what you do.
Take it away, Mr. Redman.
We are a husband and wife business partnership. We've been married 29 years this coming April. We've been in business 20 years together. We have a 26-year-old daughter, and we own 2 7-figure companies. And our primary company for the last 20 years has been to help businesses, small businesses and medium-sized businesses, build thriving companies and avoiding burnout. And we believe that leadership development and business practices are a key part of that. And most of that for the last 20 years was really focused around building market share and marketing and advertising. And then it just continued to grow into leadership development.
And that, sir, is who we are.
What an important mission. A couple things I'm really impressed. Congratulations on such a lengthy and successul marriage. And I hope that continues to go for many, many, many years to go,
and so do we.
As do we.
I imagine it will, but congratulations. That's a feat in of itself in today's day, and that stands apart. So I celebrate you for that. The two.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. We appreciate that.
And leadership. Wow. What a needed topic. So not just marketing, not just consulting, but specifically leadership. What a noble cause. What a conversation that needs to be had just everywhere, right? Everywhere.
Absolutely. So, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Indeed. And again, I celebrate you. And thank you for a very crystal clear mission that wasn't like blah, 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 blah.
Well, I've had my share of blah, blah, blahs before. So I'm just thankful it came out right this time.
Little humor there. Before we move to question 2, Kathryn, anything to add to that topic?
No, I mean, the only thing I would add is it's kind of fun. One of the privileges we have is one of our companies is a service industry where we're, working with leaders and developing leaders, and that's our primary company. And then the second company that we share ownership in is just a product-based e-commerce pet food industry. So it's a completely different thing, which is fun for us because it gives us a lot of different perspectives, because running a product-based business that's e-commerce is different than serving people through leadership development and marketing. So it's just fun to have different perspectives and see how different companies grow and what that looks and feels like. So
yeah, and in our e-commerce company, it's we have to deal with manufacturing also. So we cover, service-based manufacturing and e-commerce, which doesn't always, it's not always on the same plate, but it is on ours.
It is on ours.
Wonderful. I love that. And I love the analogy of the plate too. Those are very different businesses, great, multiple revenue streams, but the experience that gives you in order to be able to do what you do with leadership is fantastic. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I love it. Question number 2. This is fun. You have a vast, wide array of experience. So I'm interested to ask you, what's the best thing about being in business? And I'd love to hear from both of you.
Yeah. So I'll start on this one. So I'm going to answer 2 things. And one is going to sound a little cheesy, but it's just flat out true. And it's getting to do life and business with my husband and my partner. Like, we have so much fun together, and we have learned to work together. We complement each other in our work. We have, I think, some of the best results when we get to work together with clients, because we approach things a little bit differently, and we really kind of highlight each other's strengths and fill in some of the gaps. So that's probably one of my favorite things. And then the second thing for me is really helping leaders grow, like actually pulling time out of their schedule to say, how do we help you become a better leader? How do we help you determine the places where you have gaps and really put a plan together to help you grow? Because we believe that you can and must grow as a leader if you're going to be successful running a business. It's not optional. So we want to make sure that we're equipping people as best that we can. And when we do that and we start seeing the transformation, seeing the lights go on, for me, that's just super, super fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would agree with both of those. Let me add to it. One of the things that when you're helping leaders grow, that doesn't happen a lot is being able to also articulate where are their strengths and to celebrate those.
Yeah.
I was reminded again yesterday by one of my coaches how seldom we celebrate as leaders and entrepreneurs our own successes, our own strengths. And because we go, yeah, I'm glad I have them. We take about 3 milliseconds to look at them and go, okay, check. I don't have to worry about that now. That's really what it is. And I get to work over here on these gaps because I want to get better. And I just recently was reminded of that because I had this coach looking at me and looking at one of my assessments that we do with our leaders that we work with. And he's just, and I'm like, I got a great score. I mean, that's not bragging. It was, but the point of saying that was, even though I had a great score overall, I pulled out a microscope and found every little gap in which I was deficient. And
he didn't even have my help. It's amazing.
And so when we're working with leaders, really being able to say, here's the whole thing, because you need to, this is where your strengths are, this is where your weaknesses are, and or some gaps that you need to figure out how to fill, either with leadership, staff, partnerships, or creating, at least knowing what your minimum competencies you need to be. If you're never going to master it, that's fine. But as a leader, you may not be great at accounting, but you have to have minimum competency to manage the finances and manage somebody who's doing all the work on them.
Yep.
I am an expert at not having finance skills, but I work really hard at working with Kathryn, who oversees part of our stuff, working with our outsourced CMOs that we have, CFOs that we've worked with, and then even having a partner in the other company. And those are exciting. Those are fun things. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I love it. And what I love about that are one, and I just really want to highlight this, is your humility, Michael, was just really, it was not only making me, laugh, but it's showing me who you are. And I love what you shared. Leadership is so dynamic, right? And it's a challenging subject, but really needed. And so what you both shared is fantastic. One of the topics that I know I cover a lot is something that you spoke into, is being able to give and receive, right? So that is a leadership lesson in itself, and one that I find myself speaking into. I've actually had to train myself up a little bit. When somebody gives me a compliment on a podcast or something, I just trained myself to say, I humbly receive that. Thank you very much. And that in itself, when people hear me say that, they're like, wow, you handled that really well. Now, I don't say that to brag, but it's an
important
topic, all
point.
of these.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, and it's clear that you value that kind of stuff too. Even earlier, just pausing to celebrate our marriage and just say congratulations. And so it's clear that those are things that you value. So that's cool.
I think it was funny. There was a mentor, Gil Wesley, reminded me probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago. We were talking about how to be able to just say thank you when people congratulate you, and as opposed to writing it off or doing something because you're uncomfortable. And I think it took me some time to go, how do you handle that? How do you handle it graciously?
Yeah.
It's such an important topic. It really is. I love that we're speaking about leadership on the podcast right now, and that you do this for a living, because it's in many circles very misunderstood, and people are, in my experience, right? I can only speak from that, right? In my experience, people are a little bit hesitant or afraid sometimes to speak up, and they're also not sure what falls into a leadership category, because there's so many things. We could talk character, we can talk fulfillment. You have books out that talk about some of these topics, right? But it's such a broad topic that when people who are at work, a lot of times are not sure what they can cover and all the dynamics involved. So I love that you're here on the podcast speaking into some of that, and that's what you do for a living. It's it lifts me up. Thank you.
You
Yeah,
bet. Well,
that's
and
cool.
one of my favorite definitions of humility that we've ever heard that we use with our leaders is humility is confidence properly placed.
Hmm.
Right. So it's false humility if it isn't true. But if you're really strong at something and someone says, you know what, you are really gifted at that, to receive that and say, thank you, I really appreciate that. You can be humble and still do that. So,
Indeed. If I only knew that like 20 years ago.
yeah, right.
That's
If any of us
that's
knew.
kind of what I said the first time I learned it. Oh, that's really good. I like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of humility, yes, if I only knew that 20 years ago. And I know for those of you listening and watching, several of you are saying the same thing. So let's all laugh together. This is great. Let's move on to question number 3. This is one of my favorites. I know you're going to love this question. So this is intentionally and strategically placed here, but it's a fun topic, right? So we hear, in my circles, we hear from other business owners are getting so much business that sometimes the chaos that's causing, the overwhelm, right?
Yeah.
It causes some chaos and some feelings of overwhelm. Would you be willing to each share your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first response is we get that. So we had a period of time where we grew 400% in 18 months. And that wasn't in our e-commerce company. That was in our marketing and leadership. And it completely drowned us. Like we actually hit the point, and we talk about this in the book that we wrote, but we hit the point where we literally didn't want to come to work anymore. Like everything was sideways. We didn't enjoy the team that we had built too rapidly through a poor set of decisions. We didn't enjoy some of the clients that we had let sort of crawl through the door that were just really awful to work with. It was just this chaotic pace. So that was actually what caused us to really pull back and go, how do we want to build this business so that it's sustainable, so that it doesn't take over our entire lives? And we're not like having conversations with a client who's mad at us on Saturday at a Costco because he thinks he can call, while our daughter is sitting there looking at us like, I thought we were shopping. Why are we having a conversation about work? So we did experience that and have to really come back to retooling and going, how do we deal with the fact that our company has exceeded our ability to lead it? We had gone beyond the wisdom of our own leadership. So we had to make some strategic decisions to pull back and really retool so that we could move forward successfully and have a sustainable business, a sustainable life and marriage, and just keep moving forward. So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, it was at that time, that period of time was pretty powerful. And for us, we actually contemplated shutting the whole company down.
We did.
Because it was so overwhelming. It was so stressful. And it's like, okay, we could make good money going somewhere else, working 50 hours a week for somebody else. I don't say 40 because we would probably never work 40, but we try and make sure that there's that time balance in our lives and try and make sure that there's those boundaries as entrepreneurs and leaders. But back then we just didn't, we were trying to do that and it was out of control. Mm-hmm. And there's an old saying that a mentor of ours has, and that is, your leadership is like a shadow. And he would talk about clients that he was going to bring in. He says, I want to hire clients or bring in clients that have long shadows. And when we help their company grow beyond the length of their shadow, there's going to be problems. And usually the company is going to shrink back at some point. And our company grew beyond our shadow. It was just as simple as that. And so we had a couple of choices. Either we close the doors and walk away from it, having done the entrepreneurial success. Business failure rate's over 90% now. The disengagement rate of employees is 74%. So that has not only shows how many entrepreneurs are unhappy at work, but probably a challenge with their companies too, because they don't know how to engage their employees. And then when it comes to that, only 4% of the companies that survive the stats say make it to $1 million or more. And we had gone into that. So we beat all of those. So here we have this great story, and we're sitting there going,
I hate this.
I hate this. That's not exactly what we started out to do. And it was like, okay, the dream is not there. So do we quit, or do we retool and double down? Because that's what got us into being entrepreneurs and who we are as people. So after some long inventory, we said, let's double down. So we restructured, reinvested in our own education, started learning that what got us here isn't going to get us there. So what are the things we need to go to the next level? What are the competencies we need to learn? What are the minimum competencies we need to have? We started learning and finding people. And then we started and we actually were investing in our leadership, but we figured out how to invest in our leadership at a whole new level so that we could grow that shadow. And when that happened, that was pretty significant for us.
Well, it was. And it really is what we do now. We talk about developing the whole leader for the whole business. And that mantra comes out of our own, this is what it looks like when you don't have your crap together. It is not a good gift. So how do we retool ourselves and then out of that, help other people go, you know what? There's a different way to do it.
Yeah.
And, we talk about, we have this model that we call passion and provision. And it really is this sense of, I really do love what I'm doing. I'm doing something I'm gifted and skilled to do. And it actually provides for my needs, right? It's not just an expensive hobby. I'm actually paying myself. I'm paying my people. So we talk about passion and provision and how you build that, because that's what makes it sustainable. Right. And that's what makes it fun to be in business, is you're actually enjoying what you do, who you do it with, and who you do it for. So those are the things that matter for us.
And I would add this, if you're going back to kind of the question, because sometimes we can veer from the question a bit, but when you have that overwhelm, acknowledging these two facts, one, there's probably more you can learn about running a company. And two, there's probably more you can do to grow as a leader. And what we have found through that example and everything else, and as we work with other clients, we've seen it over and over again, that as you expand your skills at a holistic level for the company, and you expand looking at yourself as a leader holistically, we talk about growing the whole leader for the whole business, your efficiency goes up and your overwhelm comes down. And I would say this, there's hope. Mm-hmm. Don't give up. There's hope, but you probably need help. You probably can't do it all alone.
Yeah. We have this one of our other favorite sayings is it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. So sometimes you need a little outside perspective to actually see what's going on and how to retool and get help. So.
Love that. You took all the words out of my mouth. I got nothing. No, I love that. The analogies that you use, the description that you use, the real life examples that you use. You're walking the talk, which is unfortunately a little rare in the market today. I mean, especially on the internet. It's not rare. I mean, it's out there, but it's a little harder to weed through some of the fluff that's out there in the market today to get to people who have actually walked the walk. They've failed to pick themselves up, or they've come close to failure and picked themselves up. And you are literally living examples of how that can be done. It also resonates with me. For those who know my story, I have a similar story to that. Very large leadership lid issue that I needed to resolve, and which I did 15 years ago. So I understand what you're speaking into. It resonates with me very deeply. And thank you for just being so honest and vulnerable about it. That's
there's a lot of hype out there.
Yeah.
I mean, being in marketing, being in marketing, a marketing company. I remember one time telling somebody, it's like, you're close to pond scum when you're in marketing. And I told a client that, and they said, we got you beat. We're worse than pond scum. We sell insurance. But you look at that and you go, there is a lot of temptation to put a lot of hype in what you can do. And I think it's just a freebie throwaway today in the marketing and everything of companies, of people who are listening. If you just are clear about what it is you actually offer, and you actually believe there's value in it, Just be articulate. Just be clear about that. You will find your tribe, because people are looking for a clear answer with somebody who can deliver. And just don't think it's going to change overnight, but just stay with that. Play the long game.
Love it. Absolutely love what you delivered. Thank you. This is really valuable. And we haven't even gotten to the main question yet. So thank you.
Yeah, this is a good warm-up.
This is great. Question number 4. What other successful business owners, like yourself, of course, should be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
There's probably a lot, but we can't think of any right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, I asked the question on every podcast. I'm going to throw this out there just in the spirit of being very transparent, because that's part of who I am. I asked that question so I don't have to outreach, because I would say, hey, so and so just highlighted you on the podcast, and I'd love to have you on. You seem like a person of character. So I'm very cool with your answer. I totally support. I support that. I imagine you have hundreds of people you could highlight, but you may not want to just single anybody out. So I respect your answer 100%. Thank you.
And let me elaborate a little bit more. We are cautious on referrals and recommendations, as probably most of the listeners are. You want to be careful, because when you give one, your reputation's on the line, and you want to make sure that it delivers on both sides of the equation. So it's a win-win.
And not having had time to ask if they would be willing to be highlighted, I would be unwilling to highlight anyone. That's really the bottom line.
I love that answer. I look for patterns. It stands out. And so this tells me something a little bit about you, tells the listeners something a little bit about you. And I love what you stand for. You're teaching leadership. You're standing in your character right now, and you're setting some boundaries. And how could I not love that?
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
I love it. Let's get to some wisdom. What do you think?
I like it.
Good.
So if we're going to talk about wisdom and what other people should really pay attention to, I love the fact that you used the word wisdom. So here's the first thing I'm going to drop. We define wisdom. We kind of look at it in a unique way. I don't know if it's unique or not. I think it's super old. It's as old as dirt, probably. But it's this context of good judgment. And I'm going to use that term right now. We technically call it a value to a judgment. But when we talk about leadership development, everything else, and wisdom, we start with, hey, if you want to be wise, it kind of falls into 3 categories. And we often say, I'm hoping you have good judgment, is what I think most of us are saying when we say that I hope you have some wisdom. Don't step off the curb when there's a bus coming if you don't have a green light to go on. And there's 3 aspects of that. So I'm going to share this. This is the first thing I want to share is, if you're thinking about decision-making as a leader, training your leaders, anybody in your company, or down all the way to the line level, you want to make sure people have good judgment. And that's going to come in 3 different fashions. They can look at a situation and assess it properly. What's really going on? 2, they can come up with a solution that actually is going to be a solution to the challenge that is going to work, an accurate solution. And 3, they're going to be able to implement it. If you yourself as a leader, or your people or your leaders can do that, then you're going to have a much better chance of doing everything from reducing workman comp claims on the line as you hire, to having people being able to solve efficiently and effectively large solutions at the larger company level that could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of consequences. And what you want is, when we make decisions, we want to make sure that we're doing that. There is a way to assess that. And that's the first thing I want to do, is talk about that and just say, hey, those are the things you want to look at. And it turns out that there is a guy by the name of Hartman, who passed away in the early 70s, actually invented an assessment that we use with leaders to be able to assess that and help you go, how well do you make judgment? What gets in the way of good judgment, and what can you do to grow as a leader so you can improve your own judgment or your team's judgment? And I think everybody can kind of understand, if you can improve those kind of things, you're going to improve the efficiency, effectiveness of your company, the money to the bottom line, the ability to grow, and you're going to reduce your stress a lot. So that's the first thing I would say.
That's really good. All right. I'm going to say some other things.
You go.
Okay, my turn.
I will sit here and listen.
So, as we talk about just what it looks like to be a good leader and what it is to run a company and run it effectively as a whole leader for the whole business, we kind of talk about three core things that matter. One is your mindset. And I alluded to this earlier, which is that as a leader, you can grow and you must grow. Like it is non-optional. If you want to have a successful company and you want to be able to help others succeed that are working with you and for you and partnering with you and helping you get to the place that you want to go, the vision that you had when you started this thing that you're doing right now, you have to be willing to grow as a leader. And you have to have a mindset that says, I can grow, and understand that there are paths and strategies to get there. So that's the first thing. The second thing we would say is you need a business model. And it is amazing how many people don't have a business model. And so what happens if you don't have a business model is you forget significant pieces of the pie, right? So, we created a really simple business model. It's 6 parts. Vision is in the middle because you got to know where you're going and why you're doing it and what's going to change if you get there, right? Ultimately. So having a vision. And then we talk about leadership as a key element. We talk about management and operations. We talk about marketing. We talk about culture, and we talk about money. Those are kind of our 6 core areas that we talk about, because if you have that business model, then you can pay attention to all those things. And vision sits in the middle because it touches all of them, and leadership touches all of them. So your mindset has to be right? You have to understand growth. Your model has to be in place. And then our final part, which is a little redundant, is you actually have to grow as a leader. Think holistically and choose growth. And in places where you're struggling, look for some outside help, because all of us need mentors and coaches. None of us can get there on our own. And I think the illusion that we have to be like the Lone Ranger in the Wild Wild West and we have to know all the answers and we never need help because we're the boss and we're the smart one is just a bunch of junk. We all need help. We all need growth.
With you. So with
I like
you
that.
100%.
That was better than mine.
Oh, no, it wasn't better. It's just different.
Just different. I love it. I love the contributions from both of you. This is fantastic. Appreciate it. It brings a whole new element and dynamic and brings multiple perspectives. So I love it. Been
Cool.
wanting to do this. So it's great to have a husband and wife team to do it together. That's great. All really important subjects. And I knew about your 6 specialties. So I was on your website and I checked it out. I love it. I saw great models. I'm curious, and I could be off base here, but the quiz that you were talking about, is that the quiz that's on the website? Or is that a different assessment that you have for leaders?
The one I was talking about is a much more intensive one that we offer. And then the quiz we have on the website is actually more of a high level quiz that deals with those 6 areas. So it's the quiz on the website is a great tool for being able to kind of go, okay, high level, if we were going to have a 15-minute conversation or a 10-minute conversation, and I was just going to ask you some questions, we could get a high level look at, well, where are your strengths and weaknesses? Mm-hmm. If I were to plot them on a circle, would your wheel be round? Meaning all your scores are equal. And then if they are, do you have a small wheel or a big wheel? Do you have to run a lot like a little hamster to get anywhere? Or do you just kind of get to cruise along with these big wheels that are your skill set? And that quiz will really help kind of give that picture, I think.
Love that. Powerful tools. Now I have a funny question for you. Have you ever met anyone with a fully balanced wheel?
No.
That was kind of like a lawyer question there.
Right?
No. It's kind of like one of those cartoons, the oval that just kind of flops over and over and over again. Yeah, at least I want it to roll.
But indeed, it's such a powerful tool. I use things like that in my business as well. I'm totally familiar with it. And that's really eye-opening when you walk through that and say, wow, this isn't round at all. I have some work to do. It's eye-opening. I love it. I love that you have that on your website. That's great.
Yeah.
And that you offer those kinds of tools.
Yeah.
This is great. I have a couple.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Michael.
No, you're fine.
I have a couple other questions. You've been doing so well in business. You have great tools. You have a great website. I love the topics. I mean, it's so needed everywhere. Unfortunately, not to drop the mood elevator, we've been doing so well, but I mean, there are a lot of toxic companies out there. And you touched on this, that there's just a lot of people who don't have business models. I love that you actually just flat out said that. But a number of guests who are just shocked by this, even in today's day when everything's at our fingertip. And there's a lot of businesses that are not working from a model at all.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening and watching, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to these two wonderful people and get yourself a model. Darn it.
Darn it.
Today is the day.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
It's so needed.
Yes, I'm calling you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have one, you need one. And you don't need to get it from us. Yeah. You got to have a model. But we offer one to kind of go, okay, it's good to see something before you start figuring out what the one you want to work with.
Yeah.
That's really strong wisdom. And I have to say, I'm still shocked myself when I'm like, you're not working from a model? Wow. So I come from a construction background. So when they talk, the internet blueprints that they talk about. So most of the listeners know I built stadiums all over the country and even outside the country. And we have to work from a blueprint. We have like cross sections and all these kinds of things. So when I hear you talk about frameworks, I know you know what you're doing and you've walked through these systems and you've tested them and all those kind of things. And it's just for someone that's never done that, that doesn't always resonate with them. They think it's some kind of marketing ploy or tactic. These are actual proven models that you work from. So
this is what you have to have so your building or your stadium doesn't fall down.
We have
and collapse on you and crush you.
We have a contractor as one of our clients and property management company, and they do a whole bunch of stuff like that. But we build homes and commercial property through that company. And I'm just thinking about stadiums. I mean, it's the bigger it gets, the bigger the company gets, the more important those plans are, because all of a sudden it's one thing if you got enough leg room on the 50-yard line, but if you're off an inch and that scales through, you're in the end zone and you don't have a seat.
And that's a problem.
Those things escalate, and they escalate in problems in companies. So if you're listening today, this is a critical one that we kind of landed on. Get a model, because it will save you a lot.
Well, and I think just really quick, because I know we're probably going to be done with time soon, but I think one of the things that happens, Brad, is that people get overwhelmed when they see a model, because it's like, I have to know all that stuff. I have to be able to do all that stuff. So one of the things we talk about, and we talked about this in the book, is what you need is minimum competency. Michael alluded to it earlier, right? You don't have to be a CPA, but you better know enough to ask the right questions so you know you're not being taken advantage of. And so you know what your cash flow looks like, and so that you can plan, and so that you actually know how to read the reports, right? You don't have to be a management guru, but you better know a little bit about what you're supposed to be doing, what it's meant to look like, and then potentially find folks who can come and help you in those arenas, right? So it's really about having enough competency to have intelligent conversations, build good teams, and then really play to your strengths and allow other people to play to their strengths, so that your world gets more rounded, not because you know everything, because that's probably not possible, but that you know enough to surround yourself with people and ask good questions and build the right team to keep moving forward. So, and
let me throw in on that. There are some companies probably right now that are listening that are small. They don't have much staff at all. Maybe there's a solopreneur, or maybe there's one or two or three people. It's very alluring to not worry about the model now, because you have a couple of people, they're across the room, and you can, it's just easy to manage.
It's organic. You're just making it up as you go.
Now's the time to put it in place. Now's the time to practice, because if you can start to practice, there's a very, very old saying that says, if you can be faithful with a little, you can be faithful with much. I think it means the skill level. If you're practicing at a small level, this is a cheap and easy way. The mistakes now are way less expensive. And if you do that, then you can continue to easily implement it when it gets ready. When it's time, you'll have the ability to take advantage of the opportunities, and they won't crush you. And I just say that because sometimes I mean, we did it. We're young, we're little, we're small, we're across the room from each other. We don't need that. Yeah, we do. And we started to practice it, but we had to be slapped on the head a few times to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Great conversation. This is so important. Everything you've mentioned has been, I'm hesitate to use this word, valuable. I mean that sincerely from the heart. It really has been. You've gotten to the core issues of a number of challenges for entrepreneurs, for business people, for leaders. You've touched on a lot of really important subjects. I'm going to shift gears here because I already know the three of us could talk about these fascinating topics for hours,
days and days.
And maybe we will on a different podcast. For today, I'm going to switch gears. But before I do, because I'm going to ask you about your favorite vacation, before I do, there's one question that I'm really interested in asking you. I know somebody, I just know, I have this discernment, this intuition. I know somebody's listening and watching today, and they're like, look, I know they're speaking to me, but I'm just not comfortable reaching out to people because all they're going to do is sell me something. What response might you have to someone that's in that space? Because I know there's a lot of people in that space. How would you respond in how you could, not you personally, but just how would you respond that someone, we talked about mindset. How would you respond to someone that's feeling that or thinking that right now?
I've got a thought.
Yeah. No,
okay. All right. Here's the deal. I'm going to say this. Forgive me if this is too blunt. We're all adults. We're all grownups, hopefully. And I realize there are times when I'm listening to somebody and I go, I don't want to talk to those people because I can just hear the slime a mile away. And they can't receive no. For us, and I can only say this, and then hopefully people will believe it, for Kathryn and I and our company, our goal is actually to help people. We also would love to have a conversation. If you're interested, go to the website. If you're interested, check out the quiz. If you're curious and interested, look at our book. It's on Amazon. You can buy it on our website. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy the Kindle version and read the first 2 chapters, the introduction and the first chapter. If you think it's junk, throw it away. I won't be offended. Yep. And we're not getting rich off selling books on Amazon.
As it turns out, books, not such a good money maker, but
if
a really great exposure.
But if either you're thinking right now, I really need this, or you need a little bit more research, maybe you want to talk to somebody now or after a little bit of looking into us, then come and have a conversation with us. Get on the phone, fill out one of our forms. We would be glad to have a conversation with you. And if you can sense that we're very conversational here, our staff is the same. They're not only hired because of that, they're trained in that way. And our goal is to say, hey, let's just see what you need. Maybe we can help. Maybe we can't help. Maybe we're not the best fit for you. And we go out of our way to try and make sure that we have those honest conversations. And then if we can't help, how can we point you in a direction that might be more useful?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah. One of our other favorite sayings is help is only help if it's perceived as help. So we actually want to work with leaders and help them succeed. And if we can't help them, then we will be real clear about that. It's kind of a mutual vetting process in that sense. And I think that anytime you're looking for help especially from a coach or a leadership mentor or anything like that, there has to be a mutual vetting. It has to be a good fit. There needs to be a values alignment, a sense of like, you're my people. You actually get me. There needs to be some of that. So we welcome those conversations because we don't want to work with people that we don't like any more than people want to work with us if they don't like us. So there has to be an alignment. That help is
only help unless it's perceived as help is such an old joke or an old statement in the company. We've been using it. We have people who just repeat it. And a friend of ours sent us a graphic the other day of a sign that he found on a desk that said, hamburger helper only works if the hamburger is willing to receive the help.
That's great.
I was like, I love this. I love my life. I love what we do for a living because this is just too much fun. And those are the kind of people we get to interact with.
This is great. Great answers. Thank you. And hopefully that really fell upon someone who needed to hear that right now.
Nice. Thanks for asking that too.
Yeah, some trust involved in that, and it's just an important. It's not just. I don't want to mitigate it. It's an important topic. It's an important topic. So we're all human. These things happen. So thank you so much. Look, I always end the podcast the same way with this question, because not only does it get to, it's a great question for people to get to know you a little bit better outside of business and what you stand for and those kinds of things, like what your values are and what you value, but also it's just something that's just not related to business. I believe that we work to live and not live to work. And if you're one of those people who lives to work, you probably don't listen to this podcast. And if you do, we want to encourage you to change. So my question for both of you is, what's the most fun vacation you've ever had?
Yeah, I love this question.
So we talked about it.
We did. And you know what? We'd be happy to do slideshows with people, but our probably the most fun, like if you want to come over for a slideshow, I got one. Probably our most fun vacation when we talked about it was that we got to go to, we got to take a Mediterranean, a 10 night, 11-day Mediterranean cruise. And the funny part about it was that Michael and I never wanted to go on a cruise, and we won it. We won this cruise. And I won't even get into the boring details of how that happened, but we won this cruise, and it was like the flight over, and it starts in Rome, and then it ends in Venice, and we got to do this. And we were just like, I'm kind of a go deep person. I'd rather be in one place and go deep. And so the idea that we would be like going to multiple places and only having like 4 hours to explore it was not necessarily enticing to me. But when you win something, you're like, hey, we're doing this. And it was the most fun. We kind of positioned it like this is a scouting trip. So we're going to go to all these places and we're going to scout them. And then we're going to figure out where we want to go back and stay and go deeper. And it was just an incredible trip. We did Rome, and we did Ephesus. We did
Athens.
We did multiple. Yeah, it was delightful. So that was, and we didn't have to unpack and repack. And I don't know, that felt like a bigger bonus than I realized. So yeah, Mediterranean cruise was definitely my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think about, we're running businesses and we want to have more of a life, and we want to be able to not only have the time, but be able to afford it. That's one of the reasons why we're running businesses. But it's funny that our favorite one, even though we've done a lot of great things, is one we got for free. Although at 54 years old, with 2 companies, I still love the word free.
Free is fun.
I mean, give me a free pizza and I'm like in.
Well, and what was super cool about it, though, I'll just drop this last bit, is that we've done quite a bit of international travel, but primarily to the UK, because you can't hear it in my voice, but born and raised in the UK, left there when I was 7. My mom is still there. So we've done lots of that. But every time we go, we have to be in the UK. And so this was like our excuse to be like, Mom, sorry, we'll stop in at the end, but we're doing other things this trip. And so that was the other part that was really fun about it, was that Michael got to go beyond just going to my hometown, which is an epic hometown. Like nobody is sorry that they're from York, England. It's a good place to be from.
England and Ireland are all right to visit on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But the rest of the Mediterranean was just amazing.
Yeah,
and
very eye-opening.
People, and my favorite part, well, there were multiple parts. One of the things I loved most about it is we got to go to Turkey, and we got to go to a city called Ephesus. And it was amazing. I mean, just being able to look at history and walk on roads that have been written about in books and everything else, and just go, wow, this is like, I read about some of this stuff. A lot of the places I read about this in school when I was a kid growing up, but it's way different when you show up and put your feet on the dirt and kind of look around and go, wow, this is not what I thought.
Yeah. Good times.
Love it. Great stories. I'm sure they're good times, and it all ties into culture and some of the things that you've talked about here on the podcast, which I absolutely love. And I suppose, see, the cruises I've been on were a little different. As a Navy guy, those kinds of cruises are not like what you're describing.
Definitely not the same thing.
We got to sleep and hang out in between ports. Yeah. We didn't have to work.
Right. Well, sometimes they were only like really short, like you were describing, for 4 hours. Not so fun. Anyway, that's a whole different topic for another day. I love that. Excuse me. I love that you enjoyed. It's great to hear these stories that you're sharing. And so, in the spirit of what you were sharing, I suppose we need to crack on and get a spot of tea and move on a little bit. So,
oh, nicely done. Good on
Thank
you.
both.
That sounded more Australian.
There it is. There it is. Thank you both for being on. When somebody watches this and they listen to it and they say, these two are amazing, they're awesome, I have to reach out to them. I've got to check out the website. What is the best way? Is it a website? Is it social media? What's the easiest way for people to reach out to you both?
The easiest way for people to reach us is to go to halfabubbleout.com. That's our website. And the name of our company, which I don't think we ever mentioned really.
Probably not.
Halfabubbleout.com. There's a story behind it. I won't share it. It's on the website. And then we also have a podcast, HaBOvillage.com. But if you go to halfabubbleout.com, you'll find all our contact information, a plethora of other information, and the quiz we talked about earlier.
Access to the book. So you can see the book title there. You can follow that path as well. So multiple things on that website.
We would love to have a conversation, if nothing else, a conversation with anybody with no pressure, no sales tactics. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. There'll be sales tactics because I'm a sales guy through and through, and I don't know how to talk like that. But I promise that I will accept no, and you'll be treated and respected.
Yep.
Well,
I love it. You both represent yourself as servant leaders, and so want to highlight and showcase that.
Thank you very
exude
much.
That I've seen it throughout the materials. I've been through some of it myself, and I know that you're out there to serve. And so I encourage you, if you're listening and watching it, and this resonates with you, to actually do what they recommend. So rare in the world today. If you go to the website, check it out, take the quiz, contact them, reach out, make contact, have a conversation. Conversations are so powerful. So thank you both for the investment of your time. I know you took a chunk out of your day. You invested to be here, to serve other people. And I want to thank you for that. I want to celebrate you for that. I want to highlight you for that. So thank you so much. I know you're creating a great impact in the world, and I can't say it enough. I celebrate you. So thanks for being on. Thanks
for having us, Brad.
Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast. We're business owners. This is fun. You're going to like this. Business owners are making 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 figures. Look, there's a lot of talk about that stuff on the internet today, but it's not really about that. Yes, the money is important. It's the lifeblood of business, but it's really about sharing their wisdom globally and creating impact. And I'll leave you with this. There's unity in community. Thanks for joining us.